a KGW original.
No question about the likelihood of it.
No question. A major earthquake will hit our area. In fact, experts think there's a 30 to 40% chance of it happening in the next 50 years.
Because of where we live, we need to always be prepared.
But are you really prepared?
And you're going to have your life completely disrupted for a very long time.
Prepared to not only survive the initial quake, but the days and weeks after.
Being prepared 4 years early is better than being prepared 2 seconds too late.
KGW is getting you quake ready in this Keeping You Safe special.
Hello, I'm KGW anchor Laurel Porter.
And I'm Dan Haggerty. Now, chances are you've done something to prepare for a natural disaster, but there's a lot to think about when it comes to being quake ready.
Do you know what to do when the shaking starts? How will your family find each other if roads and bridges are damaged?
Do you know where your neighborhood's emergency stash is? Do you have everything you need to survive until help arrives?
Over the next half hour, we'll go over the most important steps you can take now to get ready. Picture this. It's 4 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. You just got home from work in Beaverton. Your partner is driving to pick up your son from soccer practice in Northeast Portland. Suddenly, the earth begins to shake. Do you know what to do no matter where you are?
When the shaking starts, remember 3 words: drop, cover, and hold. Drop by getting down on your hands and knees. You want to get low before you try to move to avoid being knocked over. Cover by crawling under a table or desk. Then hold. Grab onto whatever you can. Now, you may have heard to get into a door frame. Well, that's out. If you can't find a place to crawl under, you should get next to an interior wall, away from windows or anything heavy that could fall. And remember, always protect your head, even if it's only with your arms.
If you're in your car, like your partner in this scenario, pull over, stop, and set the parking brake. Try to avoid overpasses, bridges, and power lines that could fall on you, and stay in your car until the shaking stops. If you're outside, get to an open area as soon as possible, away from trees, buildings, and power lines, and then follow the 3 steps: drop, cover, and hold.
And there's a pretty good chance when the shaking starts, you'll be asleep. If you're in your bed, just stay there. The experts say, as scary as it sounds, lie face down to protect your organs. Cover your head and neck with a pillow and your hands. It's a good idea to look now for safe places in your home or your school or workplace where you can plan to take cover.
Get under the table, get under the table. Oh my God.
If you haven't been through an earthquake, it's hard to imagine just what it will be like.
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
But we can look at other big quakes for some perspective. When the magnitude 7.1 earthquake hit Southern California in the summer of 2019, people described an intense shaking that was over before many realized what was going on. When the big one hits the Pacific Northwest, you can expect to feel it for much longer.
4 to 5, 6, 8 times longer duration. And it would also feel much more like you're on a boat dock, just sort of rolling motion and less of the sharp rattles and shocks.
Dr. Chris Goldfinger, who studied earthquakes in our area for more than a decade, says you can expect to feel a persistent shaking for 3 to 5 minutes.
Wait, 5 minutes? That's gonna feel like a long time. Let's clock it.
Hold on.
A shake house at OMSI gives visitors some first-hand experience. Though it's not exactly like the real thing, you can feel the difference between different magnitudes.
We don't need to put people through a blender for them to understand what shaking feels like, because again, the goal is to equip people with knowledge and a little bit of experience so they're ready for an earthquake when one should occur.
Of course, when your home starts shaking, you'll also be dodging falling items, so it's a good idea to secure your space now. Pay close attention to the areas where your family spends the most time. What heavy items around them could fall and hurt you. Consider moving bookcases and shelves away from places where you sit or sleep, and move heavy items to lower shelves. Just think about this. UCLA did a study on the 1994 Northridge quake and found 55% of the injuries from it were from falling furniture or objects.
Once the shaking stops, make sure you weren't hurt. Make sure everyone you're with is okay. If your home or the building you were in is unstable, well, get outside and get away from it or any other structures that may collapse. Make sure you have on some sturdy shoes, and of course look out for broken glass or fallen debris.
You may get trapped in a collapsed building. In the Mexico City earthquake of 2017, rescuers were still pulling people from the rubble days later. Focus first on keeping the dust out of your mouth, nose, and eyes. Then, instead of shouting for help, bang on a pipe or wall. And if you can't get a call out for help, a text message may be more likely to go through.
If you're safe, you need to monitor for gas leaks. When the earth moves, so will your furnace, water heater, and gas lines. Just one crack could send natural gas pouring into your home. Just one spark, and your house could go up in flames.
If you look at damage resulting from earthquakes, gas fires are far and away the biggest cause of that.
If you smell gas, hear the sound of gas escaping, or see other signs of a leak, turn your gas off immediately. And make sure you know how to do that now, just in case.
Do you know where your gas meter is?
Maybe. I think I do, but I should ask.
First, know where your gas meter is. Second, know where the gas shutoff valve is. And third, know how to shut it off. You can use your basic crescent wrench and turn it a quarter turn.
The arrow here is showing that the gas is flowing this way. You would basically turn this perpendicular to the line and shut it off.
Another option is to install an emergency shutoff valve like this one.
This is a mechanical valve.
The mechanism will automatically shut off gas coming into your home in a magnitude 5.2 or larger quake.
So there is a steel ball that's seated in a pocket. At a certain amount of shaking, that ball drops and it plugs the flow of gas.
Northwest Natural warns, don't turn off your gas yourself unless there's an actual leak. If you want to turn it back on, you'll need to have a technician come back out to make sure the lines are safe. And if there's a natural disaster, that could take a long time.
If you live in a tsunami zone, you need to get inland or to higher ground as soon as possible after a major earthquake. If the big one hits, we could see damage much like they did in northeastern Japan in 2011. Waves some 20 to 100 feet tall could crash into our coast. For comparison, the Astoria Column is 125 feet. If it were at sea level, the wave would come close to the top, and you only have 15 to 20 minutes after the shaking to get to higher ground.
The majority of the fatalities from the next Cascadia event will be by drowning from the tsunami in the coastal communities within an hour of the earthquake.
Up and down the Oregon coast, signs point out the evacuation route. Be sure to practice it with your family, and be prepared to walk, not drive, in case of damaged roads and traffic jams. Stay on higher ground until officials say it's safe to leave. The danger from tsunamis can last for several hours, even days.
If you're wondering if your home would withstand an earthquake, you need to ask what it's made of, when it was built, and what retrofitting may have already been done. The homes most likely to withstand an earthquake are wood-framed and built after 1993. That's when Oregon adopted specific seismic standards for home construction. If your home is older than that, it still may be safe if the home has been bolted to its foundation correctly, and if what's called cripple walls, which are between the foundation and floor, are reinforced.
Unreinforced masonry homes made of brick or concrete are the most at risk in an earthquake. This demonstration shows how these buildings can shake and crumble. And even if your home is not entirely brick, your chimney might be. Retrofitters can add metal frames to give these structures a better chance. And you may have noticed the shake clock just reached 0. The ground would have just stopped shaking in the most powerful earthquake expected here.
Okay, you've made it through the shaking and escaped immediate dangers posed by unstable buildings, gas leaks, and tsunamis. But that's just the beginning. When we come back, finding your family, locating your neighborhood's secret survival stash, and what the city could look like once the dust settles. In an earthquake magnitude 8 or larger, most of the connections between the east and west sides of Portland will be severed.
None of these are ready for the big earthquake.
None of the bridges in the immediate downtown area would be usable. This is a simulation of what Multnomah County engineers believe a major earthquake would do to the Burnside Bridge. First, it would collapse onto Nadeau Parkway and Waterfront Park. The intense shaking would break the bridge apart, sending entire sections crashing into the river. County officials are working now on a plan to create an earthquake-resistant crossing downtown, but for now, only the Tillicum crossing and the new Selwood Bridge are expected to withstand the quake. Around the city, you can expect some roads to be impassable, cracked open, or covered in debris. Landslides are a big risk for hilly areas of town, while another phenomenon will likely increase the damage in other areas.
In Portland, we also are very, very concerned about liquefaction.
It happens when sandy soil with shallow groundwater shakes and starts to behave like a liquid. We saw it during the earthquake in Indonesia in 2018. Homes were swept away, others collapsed or even sank. Areas along the rivers are most at risk for liquefaction. And check out our extended coverage on KGWKeepingYouSafe.com and get a better idea of the damage expected in your neighborhood.
Your family may be spread out around town the moment the earthquake hits.
That's why it's so important that you have a plan on how you'll communicate and where you'll meet.
Step 1. Designate a meeting spot other than your home where you can stay if your home is damaged. And consider a secondary location in case some people can't get to the first meeting spot.
Step 2. Make sure everyone in your family has a written list of emergency contact numbers that they carry with them.
Step 3. Designate an out-of-town relative or friend everyone can check in with. Cell phone towers and landlines may be damaged, so it may be easier to get a call or text out to someone who lives outside of the area. That person should be the one to tell everyone whether it's safe to go home or whether you need to gather at an alternative meeting place.
Step 4. If you have children in school, know what their school's emergency plan entails.
And Step 5. Sign up all phones for emergency alerts to get updates from authorities following an earthquake. You can do that at publicalerts.org.
We know from around the world that most people are helped by those that live close to them rather than from public safety responders.
In addition to planning with your family, plan with your neighbors. Did you know every neighborhood in Portland has a secret stash of emergency supplies?
Okay, this is the Beacon Cache.
The program is called Beacon, or Basic Earthquake Emergency Communication Nodes. The chests are locked in 49 locations around the city within blocks of where each neighborhood meeting spot is on this map.
Lots of first aid gear. It's got lots of bandages.
And each neighborhood has emergency team leaders who have the keys to the caches and are trained to help.
The Neighborhood Emergency Team Program trains people like me, people like you, non-professional folks to respond during an emergency. So we are trained to do it safely. We can do basic light search and rescue.
Go to that frequency, that phone.
They're also trained in radio communication.
We need to be able to communicate if our phones stop working and the computers stop working. So if I need help, I can go there and request help.
We have a link to find your neighborhood meeting spot in the QuakeReady story on KGWKeepingYouSafe.com.
We're actually at one of the community meeting places right now. This is the Fields Park in Northwest Portland. Most of the community meeting places will be public parks or green spaces or schools.
And the emergency caches are hidden nearby. The city is working on creating art displays that will go in place to better mark the meeting spots.
Still to come, we talk about it every time there's a smaller quake. But do you have your earthquake kit ready yet? We're going to take you step by step through the most important items and let you know how long you could be waiting for help after the big one. In a worst-case scenario, a magnitude 9 Cascadia subduction zone quake, officials estimate 27,000 people will be hurt in Multnomah, Clackamas, and Washington counties alone. Nearly 1,500 could die, and 85,000 people are expected to need shelter.
Oregon emergency planners say they will try to have shelters operating and at least 3 emergency travel routes open within 24 hours of a major earthquake. But the Red Cross says you should be prepared to go without outside help for as long as 2 weeks.
Remember, you may be without water, sewer, electricity, or natural gas, which is why we spend so much time talking about the importance of emergency kits.
We're going to go into a camping mode with the big one.
Getting together everything you need for your family can seem daunting. That's why experts recommend slowly building up your stash.
You can buy these one at a time whenever you go to the store.
Here's a look at all the recommended supplies.
The big one is water. The Red Cross says you should have 1 gallon per person per day. And remember, that's for 2 weeks. So if you have a family of 4, That's 56 gallons of water.
Then there's the non-perishable food. It should be easy to prepare, knowing you may not have electricity. And make sure you have a can opener. Also, plan for a 2-week supply for all your family members.
Add to your kit a flashlight, battery-powered or hand crank radio, extra batteries, and a first aid kit. Include a charger for your cell phone, and if possible, a backup battery.
You might want to have your wrench to turn off your gas in this kit as well, and a multi-purpose tool. Set aside some of your medications so you have a week's supply.
Add in personal hygiene items, a blanket, and some extra cash. And if you're not very familiar with the area, throw in a map. You'll also want copies of personal documents, including passports, birth certificates, insurance policies, the deed to your home, and any medical information.
We have a checklist posted for you on the KGW app or kgw.com that includes the basics and some extra supplies you might want to add to your kit.
If you already have one of these kits together, great. Make sure, though, to replace expired items regularly and keep it ready to go. Ideally, you'll have one kit for your home and a smaller one to keep in your car.
Next, when the big one hits, will you have any warning? We'll take a look at the Shake Alert system under development right now.
One thing we don't have right now is a good way to warn people when an earthquake is coming, but that could change in just a few years. The Shake Alert system includes thousands of sensors from Mexico up through Canada that could give us as much as 2 minutes warning before a destructive earthquake. Right now, the system's being tested in Oregon with institutional users. It's not available to the public. We don't have enough sensors in place yet for it to be accurate. Oregon Shake Alert managers say a federal grant should get all of the sensors up and running by 2022.
That 2-minute warning may give you some time to get your kit and get somewhere safe, but it's not going to give you time to go shopping. So now is the time to get Quake ready.
Make sure your family is ready. Make sure your neighbors are ready. After all, if we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times.
It's just a reminder, number one, that we are an earthquake country.
Remember to check out KGWKeepingYouSafe.com to help guide you through securing your space, creating a family plan, and building an earthquake kit.
Just look for the Keeping You Safe section. Thank you for joining us, and stay safe.